This conference will now be recorded.
I think you got it. You guys got it? Yeah. Everybody gets enough. Good.
Always meeting to work. Roll call, Ken.
Commissioner Vio,
Here.
Compost,
Here.
Commissioner Gandy,
Here.
Commissioner Bowe,
Here.
Commissioner Butcher.
Here. Will Commissioner Bolton lead us in prayer and pledge?
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, first let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health that we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. We come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in a meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of the community. All of this I ask in God's name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Salute the flag of the state of Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted. Take.
Motion was made by Commissioner Gandy, seconded by Commissioner Compost. There any discussion? There's no discussion, roll call again.
Commissioner Compost,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Vio.
Yes. Yeah, another motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for consideration of the minutes, regular minutes of September 27th, 2021, called minutes of September 30th, 2021, and the called minutes of October 4th, 2021.
Motion was made by Commissioner Gandy, seconded by Commissioner Compost. Is there any discussion on the minutes? There's no discussion on the minutes, roll call again.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Compost,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo.
Yes. Moving on to Commissioner and staff reports. Shannon, anybody have anything for Shannon?
I do. I wanted to ask you, Shannon, as far as with the cemetery, as far as the restructuring fees in the cemetery, how are we coming along on that?
That should be on the agenda for our next meeting.
Okay,
Yeah. Before next meeting, it'll be ready.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, Shannon. Treasury Docs,
All I have is that the financial reports will be on the next commission meeting, and the DFA first quarter report will be on there too. Also, the adjustments as well will be on the next meeting's agenda. That's all I have.
is there any discussion for Treasury?
Yes, Anthony, I don't know, are you aware of the First Street project?
Is that Jackson? Which First Street? I don't know.
With the hotels and the water that we put in for
Yes,
Valencia?
yes.
North.
Yeah, we'll think about the hospital. Yes.
Have we been reimbursed for that yet or not?
Let's go through EDC. Oh, go ahead. Evan.
Evelyn, looking at the EDC. We did, Eddie Valencia was in town last week. He did come look at the site. We are waiting for the transformers And the lift stations to be tested, they were not there yet. Chuck Johnson was missing a part for the panel box. It was on back order. And also, since with the new regulations of the state inspectors, the state requiring everyone to be vaccinated, I think they lost 3 or 4 employees, and now they're only down to one, a gentleman named Aaron. So he's actually taking care of half the state. So we're back on. So we're waiting for him to be able to make a trip to Lebanon. And once he sets a date, Chuck will install the part. Doesn't want to install it ahead of time too with all the still going on in town. So he's not going to do it until they're ready to test it. So, and that, we don't know, the inspector hasn't given a date when he can make it down to Lebanon yet.
Can you update on that?
Yes, sir. Once that's tested and the utilities are put into the city's name, Eddie Valentin will reimburse the city. It will be finalized.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Also, how are we doing as far as headhunters?
Headhunters, I've talked to, that's more than David. David's been talking the door with,
I texted David essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was, I just got back. That's our first, we'll be going over interview with her next Tuesday. We're set to 6 and 7, 6 and 7. So that'll be our first day. We're going to go to her. She'll lay out what we're looking for and so forth. She'll put it together and then she'll reach out to the.
So is she gonna be our headhunter?
Yes, yeah, and she is Redosa's, Ms. Lee is the ex-city manager of Redosa. And she's now working as consultant, also working for Southeastern New Mexico Economic Development as well. So she has a lot of knowledge that she brings 35 years of experience to help guidance in that direction.
And that seemed to be more of a interview type instead of a headhunter type.
Yeah, she is a headhunter. She's
She's gonna be-
yeah. If you read that document,
Mhm.
that very clarifies what our objective is. It's more detailed.
Right.
Yeah, so she can put that
So are we
together.
looking at any other headhunters?
Yeah, there's 2 other that I'm looking to for, and they're just waiting on their returns. When they return, I'll do the same as I did today. Send out a text, let you guys know that I've emailed you, and that we can do both before you can contact me.
Mhm. Okay, okay. Good.
Is there any other questions for Mr. Dodd? Okay, thank you, Mr. Dodd. Thank you.
Board of Commissioners, we have one open vacant position on the fire department. We are currently filling that position right now, so we've got an employee or potential employee going through the process. We just lack the the physical and drug screen. So we should add another individual to the fire department here within the next week or so. We still have the part-time temporary EMS that we're trying to utilize. Right now, we're having scheduling conflicts with their current job and our positions that we have open. So we are still utilizing them and would like to continue to utilize them while we get through this shortfall of personnel. Other than that, that's all.
Is there any questions by the board?
Chief, how are we doing on medical transports, like to Lubbock?
Right now, so in the start or this second wave of COVID, our numbers really dropped, but we're starting to see an increase now. We're averaging about 1 or 2 a day. So we're starting to pick back up on the transfers.
Are we able to accommodate that fairly well regarding the manpower?
Yes, as far as sending out the transfers, it's when we get into the 2 transfers at the exact same time that we run into personnel issues. But usually we call back trying to call individuals to come in and cover the shift while they take those transfers.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Chief? Thank you, Chief. Commissioner Bowe?
There's nothing there at the moment.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Bernard?
nothing that is small, sir.
Commissioner Combs?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Gannon?
I did that, I guess, but no, I don't have anything.
Jaylen?
Nothing tonight, sir.
Anybody have any questions for Jaylen? Any questions for Jaylen? Chief?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'd like to give you a current staffing picture of the police department, if I may. We currently have 17 certified officers out of a total of 28 positions. Overall employees, we have 23 out of a total of 38 positions. So that represents that we're basically 61% staffed at this time. The 17 sworn officers include 2 recent hires of certified officers and 1 in the academy. The 2 recent hires are out of the FTO phase, the training phase, and they're out on the streets. We have 1 uncertified applicant in the vetting process currently. In the past couple of days, I've spoken to 2 former certified officers who left within the last year who expressed a desire to come back. One of them wants to come back this month. We filled the admin secretary vacancy on a part-time basis, and we're currently interviewing for the evidence technician spot. So we have a ways to go, but we're headed in the right direction.
Thank you for the report, Chief. Anybody have any questions for the Chief?
I have a couple of questions. As far as the county, has the county expressed interest as far as working with the Livingston Police Department?
Yes, I've had conversations with Sheriff Helton, and they're ongoing. He's pledged his complete support, whether it's helping with staffing, covering calls. So
Could you get a report for us as far as next commission meeting? And just let us know what areas they're looking to be able to help with.
okay. It would probably be overnight patrol between 1 in the morning and 7 in the morning.
And also, I have another question. A lot of residents have been complaining about cars going down roads pretty quick. Is there any way, and I don't know if it's probably not your department, but any way of seeing about installing speed bumps anywhere around the city?
Yeah, I've thought about that for a long time. I'd like to do a feasibility study. We already know the spots that are the problem areas. It's just a question of, installing speed bumps, not to slow down to 5 or 10 miles an hour, but to stop them from doing 40 and 50 across Polk and up and down 9th in that area.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you could do that, I'd appreciate that also.
Yes, sir.
And bring that back to us so we can see. That's all I have.
I want to elaborate a little bit on what you requested. We did speak to the sheriff and his, and the city, county manager, as well as Commissioner Dean Jackson, and it's in process. Just putting it all together, approaching the board and getting more approval. I think hopefully within 60 days, we'll have a clear answer, but it is in process right now. Yes, as of last Thursday, we had our first meeting last Thursday. So, really official meeting last Thursday, because the question had to rise, and then to me, it's officer safety plus public safety. So we did bring that forward. Commissioner Campos played a role in the first conversation, but the last one was pretty much official one. So, because of his background, I want to make sure that I'm speaking from civilian standpoint. I want to make sure that I'm not just, because that is not my profession, law enforcement. So I asked Commissioner Campos to be on the conversation, just to spark it off. Elected last Thursday's conversation with the sheriff department. And so we've still got a little ways to go, but hopefully get you a solid answer.
I understand, because I've been, again, a lot of citizens have addressed me as far as one of the biggest issues is police presence. They're not seeing a presence, and I understand that. I understand where we're at, but we need to have more presence in our neighborhoods. Agreed. And that's why I was asking this, because I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
As far as us working with the county. No, that's why I'm asking. And I'd like to see a bigger presence in our neighborhoods.
And Sheriff Helton is pledged his complete support.
We wanted to have something solid to bring to the board instead of just saying something and backtracking. So I want to make sure that everything is basis on before bringing it to the board. And that's why I haven't brought it up to the board's attention until probably most likely the third meeting, and most likely have more input on that. But it's just on the ground.
I'd like to throw in my 2 cents. Also, citizens need to be involved. I mean, it's great that they call you, but if they're not calling this police department and letting them know there are concerns, if you ain't greasing a squeaky wheel, the cops are busy with other areas, and so they may not see that area. So the citizens need to be proactive, whether it be the speeder or the guy, searching for the stuff to grab that's on the bicycle. I'm not saying all bicyclers are bad people, but just look suspicious every once in a while. So it helps the police officers know where those people are at, what's going on. So they need to be proactive in that. Call the police department, let them know they're having a situation. So I would encourage that.
I agree also. Yes.
Appreciate that. Chief. Any other questions for the chief?
Mr. Mayor, I would just like to mention, so kind of like to keep commissioners abreast. Some of the things on the table are also like the Lee County Communications Authority. They would like for us to still become a part of that. And so we're looking at that. There's some benefits to that. And so that's one thing we're discussing, but it's not anything the board has looked at because there hasn't been any real consensus yet. It's just on the table right now. The SWAT team was also brought up as well, our SWAT team. And just so everybody knows, it is a combination of LPD and the Sheriff's Department. And the sheriff is really in agreement to keeping that. And we were looking at maybe not doing it and trying to save money that way. But those are some of the discussions that were in the very beginnings of it. But I assure you, we'll bring everything to the commission before any real discussion takes place. We'll just gather the information, like the mayor said, and we'll bring it in front of you guys and the public. But that's just what's on the table.
And Mr. Commissioner, I just note that I believe the Eunice City Commission just voted to do a study on the same thing going to LCCA.
So, thank you.
Appreciate it, Chief. Attorney McMahon,
Mayor, Commissioners, I don't have anything new to add.
attorney discussion for man. There's no discussion for man. I move on to public comment. Just ask anybody coming up, just limit yourself to 3 minutes in case there's other ones that want to speak.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I just wanted to remind you guys that we have a couple of events coming up this week. This Thursday, we will have the Off-the-Clock Connections. This is an opportunity for our entrepreneurs and our stakeholders to network and mingle. We will have a special presenter. They will be talking about branding more than just the logo. And that's going to take place at 5:30 at the town hall. And then on Friday, we will be having our Not Vacant Shindig. And if you haven't heard of it, it's a public business inside a currently vacant building. So we want to recreate our vacant buildings as if they were actually occupied with an actual business. And so what we'll do is we will be at Paper Party Emporium, and we're going to set up some bowling lanes, and we're going to set up some arcade games and some activities for the kids. We will also have one of our candidates from the Local Innovators Institute there selling food, and then we will have rapper Little Flip performing live. It will be a free and open event to the community. Of course, vendors have their own prices, and that will be set with them, but everything else is going to be free and open to the public. We'd really love for everyone to come out and show some support. We believe our community is very diverse, and we want to be able to honestly just provide a little bit of different things for the community. So we hope to see you guys there. And again, that's Friday at 6 p.m. at what used to be Paper Party Emporium. And that's all.
Thank you, Mark.
Commissioners, I'm Elaine Video, and I am the spokesman for the Animal Lovers of Lovington. And it has been brought to our attention that we have some animals that need our help. And so what we've done, the community has come together to collect money to help with the spaying, neutering shots of these animals to be able to go to Midland or Odessa to be put up for adoption at the no-kill shelters. But along with that, we know that we've had Dr. Hornbeck here for a long time, and she's been a great asset to the community. But at the same time, I understand that she is wanting to buy our facility. The facility that she's at, she wants to buy the city of Lovington. And we as citizens feel like that we need to know this. And what is she going to do for our community? Because at this point, it looks like that she is not wanting to help with the animals that are at the shelter. She does not want to provide the neutering or spaying. And I feel like our community deserves better than that. I believe that she should be, if she wants to be here, if she wants a building out where we've had it for so many years, then she needs to be a good citizen of Lovington to our citizens. We put a lot of money out there. I know I have. And I'm sure most of these people that are here today have given a lot of money to her. And I believe, if I could be wrong, that when they first brought her on, that she was to provide a clinic at a little lower rate to help the citizens of Lovington. Because not everyone can afford $200 a whack to have your animals spayed or neutered and the shots and the things that go along with it. So I feel like that we as citizens of Lovington should have a little input to this with you as the commissioners. Because we do care. We really care for our animals. And we want to be a community that when someone decides to move here, and I happen to know this for a fact, my brother just moved, and the first thing he wanted to know is, where's a good vet? And that's exactly what happens when we have new people moving into the community. How about a vet? An animal shelter. We have so many animals in this town that are running loose. We need to get our citizens educated, to have them spayed and neutered and shots. So as I'm saying, we want a vet that loves our community, loves our pets, and loves us when we hand over the dollars. And if this isn't going to happen, then what are our plans for our vet? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. I'm Edith Taylor, and I'm a co-sponsor of the Key Club at the Lovington High School. And so what we are wanting to do, I have been in contact with Larry at the city as well as Parks with Bernardo. And so what we're wanting to do as a Key Club is we want to do this year, since we haven't been able to do it for several years, is have a big community project that we're going to do in Lovington. We have picked the softball complex out here, the Harold Reynolds complex. And so what we are wanting to do out there, and I've already talked with Jalen in dealing with what kind of needs to start. We're in the planning process, but that's our project. We thought about doing both the softball and the baseball, but after going today and visiting and looking at the softball complex, I think we can only do that one this year. And then maybe next year pick up baseball, or maybe during the summer do that. And so I did pick up a waiver because I know from the attorney that we have to have a waiver from everybody. So I'm going to get that started. But what we are wanting to do out there is put it back the way it was when I played church ball out there, and some of my grandkids started playing softball out there. And so we want it back the way it was and what it's meant to be. So we are willing to paint. The city, I've talked with Larry, they're going to be dealing with, and this is going to be coming up to you guys as well, is ground killer, because they are only certified to spray ground killer out there. So all of that needs to be killed. And so they will be coming and getting with whoever he needs to do that. But we are wanting to take the Key Club, the kids that's in Key Club, in the community of Lovington. Because as far as you've seen, everybody's been saying, we have no soccer, we have no baseball, we have no softball. We have nothing for the kids of Lovington right now. And I have 3 grandkids that live in Lovington. And right now they're playing travel ball because we have nothing in Lovington. They go to Hobbs to play, and we want our kids in Lovington to stay in Lovington, and we want our money to stay in Lovington. So I feel like in the Key Club and the citizens of Lovington, we're gonna ask them, put your money where your mouth is. Because it's gonna be donations, it's gonna be them coming out and us hitting up businesses and us hitting up the citizens of Lovington to come out and help us. Because looking at it, it's gonna need to be tilled and raked, sand, aggregate's gonna have to be brought in. We're gonna have to have a power washer. I mean, there is a lot to be done. And I know in talking that we only have 2 people that work for the parks right now, and they can't do that. They can't do that and maintain all the parks that we have. And so we're hoping to get a community together after we've got this and got it all set, that that we have a community, that a board that's going to maintain that. Because with only 2 parks people, that's not going to help. If we get it to where it needs to be, I don't want it in a month where it's back to where it is now. And so we will have someone that's going to help maintain that as well. And so I am asking that we put this on the agenda for the next meeting, and I have a call to action so that I can have a vote so that we can start working on this, of getting business. One thing that we have thought of as, because like I said, it's going to take a lot of aggregate and stuff out there, that if we get some big businesses like, say, I'm just going to throw one out, PV Materials, and they donate 1 field, that we make that field their name. Like this would be PV Material Field. Like I said, my grandkids travel, they do travel balls, and when they go to Lubbock, it's not just field 1, field 2, field 3, it's field 1, but it has a name. And so I'm asking if we can do that as a Key Club, start this community project in our community for the softball field, and that we put it on the agenda so I get a vote for next meeting. When would that be? When's the next meeting?
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay,
The 25th.
25th. Okay,
Like to say thank.
any questions? You have questions? I mean, this is in the planning process, and I found out tonight that we needed to do this, and so I came back and was like, okay, I need this on the agenda.
Yeah, prior to us opening the fields this last go round, when we went out there, they were totally vandalized.
Yes, and that, we saw that today.
And it's shameful how somebody go out there and wreck over $100,000 worth of damage was done. When trying to open up the fields this last year, because we did make an effort, but after all the vandalism was done, it was over $100,000 worth of damage, and it would took quite some time. We do have 2 full-timers and 2 part-timers there, but we've also instructed them to have everything ready by April 1, not May 1, April 1. That way, if there's anything missed, we get full 30 days to ensure that all the parks and all the facilities are ready April 1, not May 1. Not start looking at them in May 1. They're going to be ready April 1.
This next year?
This next year. But I want to say thank you for being very proactive. I think that is.
Well, I think we can get it ahead of time than that. Because, yeah, he was gonna do the ground killer, and he was gonna look at the bathrooms
In the bathrooms.
and then
we'll have
the
to buy-
water sprinklers.
Yeah, and we're gonna have to buy the outlets and so forth.
Right. Yeah.
Because everything was, it's like we ripped the toilets out, they ripped out the
Yes,
sinks.
we
It's
saw
not
that
like
today.
they did
Yes.
off, it's completely demolished.
And so he wasn't for sure about the water sprinklers, because that's kind of what, he said at one point they flooded all those areas, and that's why all of the grass and stuff is overgrown in the industry. And so, so we're gonna take 1 field at a time, do it, get it going, and then go on and do all 4 fields. So we need an okay, yes, we can start, or
Definitely, and then definitely the board will meet in 2 weeks and give you the, put it as an action item and get it done. Again, I'd like to thank you for being very proactive to support having.
We're going to establish Lovington wants to support their athletes, right?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Peter, thank you. I love the idea. I'm on board. I'm with you. I just had a question for Patrick. Yes, if I would, or if I could. Any concerns from your perspective regarding doing something like this?
Well, in the past, we have had volunteers come in, if we wanted to make some changes to a park. I think the most important thing is to, along with the Key Club coordinates with our Parks and Rec in the city so that, it matches up with whatever our plans are for those facilities. And that, if there's something that they install, what kind of maintenance issues does it prevent or require us to undertake, So it's not out of the ordinary for somebody to volunteer and do these kinds of things. Most of the time, they're on a smaller scale. So I think take a look at what the plan is, make sure it matches up with what we see as being acceptable for our parks or whatever portion of that is going to be changed. And then, get a waiver. I don't think there'd be an issue with identifying maybe a PV field if the materials company wants to donate. I think it would have to come from the city as opposed to the Key Club, because then we sort of let out into the public other abilities for people to name things, which we may not be too happy with. So certainly possible. We just need to take a look at it, keep in mind those issues, and I think it'll work.
Yeah, even possibly a ban, because I know sometimes they have banners at the rodeos and so forth, they have a banner.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we can't do it, but what I see happening, this is new to me also, is let's say PV Materials donates the aggregate for field number 1. The Key Club could come in and say, hey, this is who we got to donate. We would like you, the commission, to rename that, and here's why. And then the commission would have the ability to name that as opposed to.
Right, yes, we would get the permission.
So it's something we could do. I just want to make sure everybody understands, what they're doing and itself. But it's certainly possible.
So we wouldn't be really adding anything, just getting in and maintaining. Yeah, the naming would have to come from you guys.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna say that, we're not gonna, but that's something, if they say, aggregates a lot.
Sure.
And so if they say, hey, this is, we're donating 5,000, what are you gonna do for me? Then I can say, we are looking at these avenues. It's up to the city what they want to do. So, yeah. And if we have to get the bathroom toilets and sink donated, I'm sure we could. But I think it needs to get to where we have something for our kids in Wilmington.
We appreciate it.
And so that's one thing they can hit.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Sure, and I think it's a great idea, Edith. And it'd be really, really nice to see somebody besides the Key Club come up and maybe do something like this for other areas.
Well, I'm hoping it sparks something.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what the kids are hoping at the high school, that it sparks
Tell them we like it.
something in our town.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And one thing that they suggested is even like on a Saturday, we're having soccer day. Bring your kids out. We're gonna play soccer for the day. And have different times in the Key Club, kind of babysit and play soccer. And get some of the soccer guys and girls from the high school and start building up some of our programs.
Absolutely. I like it. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I'm Marjorie Dimsha. I just have one question, is how many full-time firemen do we have on staff right now?
Chief?
14 on staff right now, with the new one coming on is 15.
And what do you need to be fully staffed?
Fully staffed prior to the reduction in forces were 7 individuals on each shift.
And so what would that be, 21?
21 total, yes, ma'am.
And so how many are you short now?
Right now, we're down 6.
Is Is there any plans on trying to get more firemen on?
Once the funding is back with the city, that was part of the plan, was to start pulling not only just the fire department people back, but other individuals back as well.
I know it's been very hard on your personnel, and so that's what I'm concerned about, is the firemen that we have on staff that are having to work so much overtime. And I think they need some relief.
Yes, ma'am. And we do put public safety first. So when funds come available, so public safety first, which is law enforcement, fire, and our water department. So that's where we're allocating funds first. That's where the staff is being hired first. So we're directing in that direction to ensure that public safety comes first.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Is there any other comments?
Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Timothy Boydston. I'm the Vice Commander of the American Legion. And since you guys, the city, has helped us in our last fundraiser and supported us, we are having another one. This Saturday is 16th, starting at noon. We're going to be selling pumpkins and hamburger and hot dog. So we invite you all to come. Let's get the PD and the fire department, not everybody else, commissioners, now support us like you did before. We would appreciate it very much. And we do appreciate all the help and everything you guys do in supporting us. And the community, everything else. So now, that's it. That's on that one. One more. You're talking about the vandalism and all the cars speeding and everything else. Also, you might want to take a look at the park, Chaparral Park. And go through there, and they're using that park, that driveway and that turnaround as a drag strip. And they're also going out, pulling up the stops to get into, driving into the park. And they're doing brodies all over the park at night. Everything else when there's not a lot of people out there. And you can probably go out there anytime in the back part of the park and around the circle and everything else and find all kinds of needles and so forth out there. And, so it doesn't look like it's been patrolled a whole lot, compared to the other parts of town and the other parks. And I know they all hang out at D Street Park on Friday, Saturday night, and at lunchtime, and peel out from there, and, and I know they're going down D Street about, when the light turns green down there on 9th Street, and by the time they get to Main Street, some of the motorcycles and everything else are doing about 100 miles an hour. And I can hear them where I live, all the way out there by the football field. And then I do know the football field parking lot, they like to congregate and talk to each other for a while. Take their, what do you want to call their breaks out there on 9th and stuff like that. So just give you a look inside what's happening on my view as I drive around and stuff like that. I try to be proactive, because if I see something and everything else, I'm gonna call in. As a citizen, and I know where I live over on Carter too, we've had a couple of incidents and everything else over there. And I know at 1 o'clock in the morning, they had a shooting down there several months ago. And they come to my house and my neighbor's house to check our cameras out, see if they can spot anything. Because that end of the Avenue Q is camera, we have a lot of cameras out there and stuff like that. And if we can get that traffic away from the apartment complex behind us out there, and block off Avenue Q, like I've been trying to do for several years, because I know Robbie Roberts is not going to run Avenue Q all the way through. Right there where it dead ends in that alley, the next housing tract, that's going to be their backyard. and Avenue Q is gonna be another cul-de-sac on the other side. So we can get that blocked off somewhere, like something like you've done at the end of 9th Street at Erlander, across the street, they got that big, they got that barricade there. You can do that in the works. You know, I understand the problem with the city with the personnel and everything else. You know, I know that firsthand, so.
We appreciate your input.
Okay, thank you very much, and I hope to see you all on Saturday, and it starts about now at noon. Okay, so we sell out.
Tim, I think you need to know, join the patrol. You need to be a patrolman. We got to stop for much.
Well, now, if you had, like a lot of cities, you had that the seniors patrol. No, I know, I'm like interested.
Okay. I might take your phone.
Okay. Call me anytime.
You're already doing it.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Any other public comment?
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Estela Alexia. I'm just gonna point y'all. There's, you know, a lot of, I mean, I get on social media, you know, and sometimes it's, there's just something that's been on my mind about the animal shelter. I'm gonna go back to that. Is there a euthanizing program going on right now with the animals, since there is supposedly no funds, you know, to, it was quoted that there was no funds for medical attention for the animals, food, so that it would be cheaper to just euthanize them? And I'm gonna ask you directly, is that what the plan is right now?
No, what happened is that the New Mexico Humane Society, they have ceased to provide funding. And what has happened, like, for instance, Hobbs lost 4 employees, we lost funding for that as well. One thing about that, so you lost your funding, and some of that was to help our services and so forth, so that's no longer provided. We do still do euthanization and so forth. We try to provide, but by the state, and this is where my point of view is that the state, we've gone on and beyond to serve the public on this. And in the past, we were only supposed to, by law, provide a shelter. So then it became a shelter, then we added on to, we did euthanization and did this. And we started adding more to what we did, more than what the state requirement is. And the bad part about it, so now the responsibility of a pet owner lets their dog run around and create babies everywhere. And now they're like, well, the city's gonna take care of it. And the bad part about it, they left the responsibility on the city instead of the dog owner. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying all owners are doing that, but there's a lot of dog owners that do that. So who provides the bill? The taxpayer. And you're limited in resources, and now you're adding on to it. So it affects everybody at large because some people are not taking ownership. So what the Humane Society has done, they said, now we're gonna go ahead and teach people, we're gonna go ahead and educate people on how to take care of pets, but they're no longer gonna fund. So that is taking funding from us as well as other communities throughout the state. So now they're leaning towards educating more than they are adding funding.
So I guess since they're not doing that anymore, so I guess euthanizing is, I mean, that's what happened, it would happen in the 70s. And, you know, I know Commissioner Butcher, that was one of the, I guess you would call him the.
He was the pound master in the 70s and 80s. And we didn't take that to save a lot of dogs, but we did have to, you know, he did have to euthanize a lot. You know, just the cost savings on the city, that's all it was. And
well, you know,
I love animals myself, but.
Well, the thing about it is if the owners, if they don't, the responsibility don't fall back on them, it falls back on us. we're limited in resource. Yeah, we can do so much to save as many dogs as we can, but it still falls under the taxpayers' revenue to provide that. And if by state law, we're only to provide a shelter, but we've gone on and beyond. So during a COVID crisis or anything like that, now you're short funds, now you can't provide the same service you were providing prior to COVID, and now you have concerns. This is what I understand. But hopefully we can work it out to where we can continue down that same path. Like Elaine said, there's volunteers, there's people willing to help fund it. So maybe we can save as many dogs as we possibly can.
The way I know several years ago, I addressed one of the commissioners and he spoke, I'm not going to put him on the spot, but I'm sure I don't know if he remembers or not, but these animals are living in cages. And people are donating tarps. In the wintertime, heat lamps. I don't think we have a shelter. I know that my husband helped build the cages that were the pens that were in the back. And as far, the community, last time I saw on social media, they started a GoFundMe page. It's about, last time I saw it was $1,800, and I think their goal is like $5,000. And so the community has been awesome. I know, we've gone out there and I don't want to, pat myself on the shoulder or anything, but, we've given cars, food, and the community is really willing to get out there. But, it's like a revolving door. Okay, fine, we'll be $5,000, it's only so much, what are we supposed to, what is the community, what else does the community do with the animals that they are trapping and picking up, and where do you take them? You're literally just, I guess, do we just take them there so they can get euthanized? Since there's no funds, apparently, I don't know where this came from, but that's what I've been seeing. And so I know a couple of years, I'm sorry to keep jumping around, but I had asked that the charity would got $20,000 somewhere, that we could get volunteers to build a building out there. At least they would be in a building and sheltered. But now, is it being sold? If it's going to be sold, or I don't know, is there plans to build another building? $20,000 for a steel building and pipe, it's doable. At least it's better than them being in cages and trying to, cover them and get healings and I guess, wash their blankets. Somebody donated a washer and dryer, a brand new one out there, and the community is really just, trying to help here. But I know that there was an issue at the time that I was talking with the commissioner about this. I never heard nothing back, but then all of a sudden it came up that okay, well, we're going to get a grant, so don't worry about it. So I never brought it up again. I was going to come in front of y'all, and it never did come up. So it didn't follow, whoever the person was didn't follow through, or we didn't get it. I don't know what happened. So, but I'm just wondering, I know that there was an issue with the ASPCA, I think, or the human, because this is a government entity. And I know like companies like Chevron, where my husband used to work, they are required to do volunteer work. And they're always looking to do volunteer work. And some of us are pretty talented. But I think there was an issue between the paperwork of it being a government entity and more of a nonprofit. So, somebody had to get in there and figure that out. And the guy from Hobbs, that was with the local Humane Society or whatever, he didn't know what kind of forms to fill or whatever. But I don't know, I'm just mentioning it because that might be a route that y'all might look into the future. If y'all, is this up for sale?
No. Okay. I'll finish here with the conversation is that we have been allocated $150,000 from the state. That's why there's more conversation. the board is considering many options right now. So when you provided 150, what direction, how are we going to spend the money? How can we best, serve our community? And that's why there's been much discussion on, do we sell the facility? Do we remodel the facility? Do we move the facility somewhere else? Do we just go with state requirements and just build a shelter and that's all we do is build a shelter? What is feasible? What is economical? What can the city afford? And that's been a discussion. That's why you're having different conversations. So, nothing's been stone until this board approves the final approval of how we're going to allocate the funding. And once that's done, they probably have a bigger picture on where.
All right, well, I'm sorry to.
No, but we appreciate.
I mean, we need to set the record straight, and there's, everybody's just, panicking, freaking out. Okay, the city's killing hundreds of animals out here, it seems like, it's like, they're into we can't afford to feed them, it's like, okay, now we're killing them, it's like, wait a minute, I mean, we need to find some figures here. I mean, there's other ways of going about it, and, I know because I've been there and I was trying to do something, and I was asking for 20,000 and it said at that time it was doable. And so nothing happened, but I mean, I appreciate the time that y'all gave me and, didn't mean to go off so much, but I mean, I wanted to find out what the heck is going on. I mean, it's good, but, it's nice to know that there is so many, and I hope, if something gets done and, I just don't see this GoFundMe. I mean, it's wonderful and everything, but, okay, well, we fix so many animals with this money, well, what about the rest that are coming in? Then what, I mean, it's endless. But anyway, thank you so much, appreciate y'all.
Can I possibly speak from my chair a moment concerning this?
Yes, just take your name.
Jane McVeigh, and most towns, cities and municipalities, they have veterinarians, whatever their size are, whatever the size of the town, they have veterinarians that volunteer, and once a month, they have a spay and neuter free to the public. And you were talking, David, about educating the public and the people. Most everybody knows that their animals need to be spayed and neutered. But honestly, if anybody has been to the vet lately, they know how expensive it is. I mean, it can start at 300 and go upward. And a lot of people in this community, they just can't afford that bill. So why wouldn't it be possible for the vet who is out there now? I don't know what kind of a contract you have with her. I'm not up on all that. But one day a month, we should advertise it in the paper and get it out to the community. The people who can afford vet bills can bring their animals for one day a month and have spay and neutering done free.
We will look into that and see, with the contract, I'll have to review the contract with the board as well as I will review the contract and see what guidelines are set for that area. And if not, if we can have some assistance or something, see what cost reduction in regards to that, or that would be something that we would definitely.
Yes, because just euthanizing all these animals that are picked up, is really not good.
Yeah, exactly.
A community has a reputation and really a responsibility, and they're looked at and respected by how they treat their youth, their elderly, and their animals.
Yes.
Thank you very much for letting me speak. But can I sit in my chair too?
You're young.
This is all in reference, I'm Shelley Saxton, and this is all in reference to the animal shelter. And I was on the phone today. There's a group that was formed 2 years ago in Midlands called Fix West Texas. It's all through donations. They got a lot of donations, and the reason for it was to educate the people and offer low-cost spay and neutering and shots to the community. So I spoke to the lady today. I'm going over there Wednesday. I'm taking 7 of the dogs and cats from the shelter Wednesday, 5 more of them Friday to be spayed and neutered, so they're off the kill list. they'll be able to be shipped out to a rescue or be adopted out, because the animals can't be adopted out unless they're spayed and neutered. So we're taking 12 this week. When I spoke to Karen, told her what the position was that we were in, I'm not real familiar. I'm kind of new back in town. You know me, I've born and raised here and grew up here, but was gone for 23 years and I'm back. But apparently there was a verbal agreement with Dr. Hornbeck. I don't know her personally. I've never heard anything nice about her. And to me, if you're not nice to kids and animals, you're not a nice person. And old people. So I don't think she's very well thought of to most people that have had anything to deal with her. The starting rate is $300 to have an animal spayed and neutered. People get animals, they're cute, they're puppies, they don't think about them growing up and starting having babies. She's willing to discuss Wednesday, and I'm going to go over and talk to her when I'm over there. Their whole reason for that clinic over there is to eliminate euthanasia. They're willing to send vets over here, not just one day a month, maybe a couple of days a week. She asked me if there was an operating facility, if there were volunteers. We've already got 5 people that have volunteered for the surgical needs. We'd have to have volunteers to take the animals in and take care of them. But she's willing to try to find some vets to come over here from Fix West, Texas, to help with the clinic here for the low cost spay and neuter. And I mean, some of the options, if you look at their October schedule, one of the options is if you bring your dog in for parvo and distemper shot, they get spayed and neutered for free. I'm bringing back parvo shots, distemper shots, rabies shots, flea and tick treatments. She's sending a whole goodie box to treat the animals out here at this shelter. So if there are options available, you just have to go a little further than 20 miles to find it. So that's something maybe we can discuss, working something out with them, because I'll know more Wednesday.
Okay. Thank you so much. Is there any other discussion? I want to also thank you for coming, the dog lovers. And thank you for being proactive as well. You know, I think good discussion as always comes across clear, so I really appreciate that. I think the whole board appreciates it as well. Okay, moving on to non-action items. Chief? And I'll address that one to
Crystal, the UTZ zone change, Griffin property.
Yeah, I just wanted to update you, commissioners, the mayor, the ETZ board of commissioners. They approved this zone change. Of course, they're not the final say so. The county, the county zoning authority is. So just to update you and let you know that this is going on to the county level. Just posted a map up here so you guys can kind of get the idea of where that is. The property is bounded on the west side by 9th Street, and the alley of Dogwood is the south side of the property. Any questions on this?
Tell me that again, please.
9th Street is on towards me, which is the west side of the property.
Yeah.
Yeah, north is up.
Okay. Oh.
So you can barely see Gum Street along the top of the picture there.
Okay, yeah, it's back behind those houses that are on Gum Street. That's that big empty square over there.
Yes. So the one little building within that whole parcel that's outlined is the one that she wants to be able to change that to a.
So what access would they have to that commercial property other than going through the residential areas?
There is a gate that she has off 9th Street, but she was asking for the approval for it to go through 7th.
Okay.
Due to less bleachy to put in to the location.
And this is for a
That's all.
venue?
Yeah.
But they want to change the commercial zone?
Yes. Can I have because the venue would make it a commercial property if she rented that venue out. and it's zoned as a residential.
Just for my 2 cents, no.
Okay.
Due to the fact that,
I can take that to the county so they know your opinion. That's why.
And the reason being is there's no access on a Gum Street to it. You're basically going through our residential areas. Once you convert it to a commercial property, then that opens the door to a whole slew of other things.
Yes.
You know, I mean, not to be ugly to the people that own vacuum trucks and their success, but no.
That was brought up during
Yeah,
that meeting also.
I can see that being an absolute nightmare later on as we kind of develop other properties. If it was closer to some other commercial areas, I'd be fine with it, but in that particular area,
I can voice your opinion to the authority, so that way they'll have that. Anybody else?
Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
Moving on to the next item again.
Shannon is going to have a discussion about the research and rolling redistricting plan.
Michael Sharp should be joining us on this.
Yes, I am here.
Here it is. Okay. I did pass out the map, current districts. I passed out the map that you sent, Michael. So you want to go ahead and do the presentation?
That looks good. Great. Okay, so good evening. This is Michael Sharp. I'm out of Albuquerque. So thanks for letting me attend remotely. And I spoke before the commission about a month or so ago, just talking about redistricting in general. And you've asked me to come back and go ahead and take a look at your city council, your city commission districts, and look at adjusting them based on numbers from the 2021 census. And so I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Unless I can control this, I'm not sure. Or else I can share my screen. So just really quick, we have a decent number of experience with redistricting. This will be my 4th go round with respect to first working on redistricting the 1991 census following that. And then, so it's almost, I guess it's been 30 years, and lots of redistricting projects around the state, including state legislature and other local communities there in Lee County, including the Hospital Board and New Mexico Junior College and City of Hobbs. And what I wanted to do next was just kind of go over quickly who gets to redistrict and who is responsible for the redistricting within the city commission, and that's on the next slide. Right now, we're in the process of redistricting the state legislature, the U.S. Congress, Public Education Commission, county commissions, local school boards. Well, actually, school boards are next year. And then for Lovington, it's the city commission. But the key point for this particular slide is that the city commission, you all are responsible for what your boundaries look like in the end. It's the legislature and the governor have their own responsibilities. The county commission is responsible for its own commission districts, and Lovington is responsible for its own and doesn't really have any say on the other districts as either. So it's up to you guys to decide how you want your districts to look like. And then moving on, really quick timeline. I may have mentioned this last time. April 1st of last year was Census Day. The data was delivered in August of this year. Normally it was delivered in March, so we're a number of months behind due to COVID. Right now we're in the process of considering and adopting redistricting plans. I know we briefly mentioned redistricting in general a little while ago. And the reason I say November is just because I know the city clerks around the state would love to have a redistricting plan in place by the end of November. just to be able to efficiently run the election. But by law, December 31st of 21 is the deadline to complete the redistricting. And so what is redistricting? It's basically redrawing the lines to figure out who is represented by its district. Your city is divided into 5 commission districts, and you represent the folks within the district. Well, the whole city, but the folks within the district vote for you. And so why do you have to redistrict? A number of different reasons. One, at least in Lovington's case, is it's required by law. So if you have a population greater than 10,000, according to the most recent census, you must redistrict and adjust your boundaries. Lovington had a population of just around 11,600 people, so you met that threshold. And the other reason is that over time, that population changes, and it doesn't all change the same within any given governmental entity, with any given municipality or county. And you can just see that within Lovington, you can see that within Lee County, that population has changed, but it's been either a few places, it hasn't been everywhere and equally distributed throughout the county. So when we redistrict, when do we do it? We do it when the data is the most fresh, if you will, is the most current. And we use the data that is the most reliable, is the best data that is available, and that's from the decennial census. So even though the census was conducted April 1st last year, the data came out this year, but it's still the best data available. In terms of the principles of redistricting, there are 5 basic ones. The first 4 I like to think of as, I guess, as the legal constitutional framework for redistricting. And as long as you meet those criteria, then you can use communities of interest to determine what some of the other qualities of your districts look like. So we'll go into each one of those next. With respect to equal population, who gets counted? And it's on the next slide. And when we talk about the census and who's counted, it's basically everybody. It's adults, kids, college students, prisoners, citizens, non-citizens. If you lived within the United States on April 1st, 2020, then you are eligible to be counted with respect to the counts we use for redistricting. And then where are they counted? Well, you're counted at the place where you live and sleep most of the time. So if anybody has a college student and they're living in Las Cruces, going to New Mexico State, then on our April 1st, 2020, they would have been counted at New Mexico State in the dorms or Las Cruces in general. And so that's just a quick overview of who gets counted. There is a constitutional mandate to redistrict. A number of court cases have basically laid out the framework of every district has to have the same population, and they needed to be equal. Equal population means equal representation. No matter where you live throughout the city, you're going to have the same representation as anybody else, and that's the key. For Congress, the districts have to be as equal as possible or as practicable. So just looking at raw numbers of people. But for city commissions, we have a little more leeway. So when we look at equal in population for your commission districts, they don't have to be perfectly equal. They can go above or below what we call the ideal population of a district, and that's on the next slide. So what is the ideal population? How do we define it? We take Lovington's total population, divide by the number of districts, and that will give us kind of our target population, our ideal. So it's about 2,333 people. Well, we can go above or below that by about 5% deviation. So that means the districts would be substantially equal in the eyes of the courts. So practically speaking, that means that after redistricting, every commission district would be 2,333 people, plus or minus 116. So every district will fall within that range, 2,217 to just under 2,450 people. And it's based on total population and not registered voters. So it's just based on the census count. In terms of minority voting strength, the second kind of leg of our stable table, we just have to make sure that when we're looking at minority voting groups, that we give the groups an opportunity to elect a candidate of their choice. It doesn't mean that when you have a majority Hispanic district that there's always going to be an Hispanic representative elected. It just means that the opportunity has to be there. And the other thing important that we have to remember is we can't draw these districts in which race or ethnicity is the only reason we drew the district, and subordination of other criteria. It just means we can create districts where people can elect a candidate of their choice, but don't create crazy looking districts. Which leads us to compactness. And basically, it refers to how a district looks and its outer boundaries. When we see, and it refers to outer boundaries, not necessarily its geographic area. So you can look at New Mexico, and there's a legislative district that runs down from Clayton all the way to Clovis. So that's quite a distance. 100 miles, 150, maybe 200 miles. That's just for one district. Whereas in Albuquerque, maybe a district is 3 or 4 square miles total. And it's just a matter of how many people you need to get to create that district. So it just means that that just has to look good, it has to look compact. And when I think of compactness, especially with respect to municipalities, we're looking at the inner boundaries between the districts. Lovington has, I would say, an irregular outer boundary. It's not a square, it's not a circle, triangle, but that's just because you have various annexations, and that's just the nature of your municipal boundary. So we'll be looking at the insides of the districts. And then just some examples of compactness, little images I wanted to quickly show you. These are all from 1991, but I just wanted to make it apples to apples. The little figure on the left is New Mexico's 3rd Congressional in 1991. That's actually fairly similar to that today, and so it's still relevant, but it's pretty compact. Tries to follow county boundaries. The 2 figures on the right, the one with that little green district in the middle, that is not compact, and that was created solely for the purpose of creating a minority district, as was the district in red on the bottom. Those are both struck down by the Supreme Court for being bizarre in shape. So we'll avoid those 2 figures on the right. The 4th item to note is contiguity. Basically means no islands of territory. Every district has to be made up of only one piece. I like to say, if on a map you put your pencil on a district, you have to get to every other part of that district without lifting up your pencil. So the figure on the right, you'll notice that District A in blue, 2 pieces, so it's not contiguous. So now that we have the legal and constitutional requirements, we can go to what are called communities of interest. And these are just everything else that you can think of that might determine what your districts could look like. You can take a look at geographic boundaries, subdivisions, neighborhoods, traditional areas of culture or history. You can look at your current district and say, well, geez, I'd like to see the districts have a similar flavor or similar boundaries to what we have today. And then along with that, you can avoid pairing the current elected officials. It can be considered, you don't have to, but as long as you keep in mind the other districting principles, that those other principles aren't violated, then you can look at almost any community of interest as you define it with respect to the redistricting process. When we look at the plans, a couple things to remember. They're rarely perfect. They're rarely perfectly compact. They rarely take into account every single community of interest within a municipality or county or whatever it happens to be. And when we look at any given districts, you might say, well, geez, it would be nice to be able to move the boundary from one street to another. But we also have to recognize that making one change affects other districts, that no district is in a vacuum by itself. And we have lots of different things to consider. And so because we have lots of different factors, they may kind of work against each other. And it's, yeah, like I said, it's difficult to create that perfect plan. So with this, I have one plan for you that it's not set in stone. You can make changes. You may like it, may be perfect, but it's intended to initiate discussion. And so we'll take input on that if you have any. the basic process for redistricting. We've talked about the redistricting. We'll get some public input, input from the commissioners. We can about to show a plan. We can revise it. You can adopt the plan. And then once you adopt the plan, then we'll get the information to the county clerk with respect to the new commissioner boundaries so that they can assign voters to the correct districts in time for your election process. So you have a pretty good idea of what your districts look like today, but I thought I'd throw the map on the screen. And you can see for the folks who might be joining us from the public that yes, the outer boundaries of Lovington are not necessarily square. It's just due to annexation and picking up different pieces of the surrounding area. Now you have districts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5, being south of Roughly Avenue K and going south along the highway to Hobbs. And then the other 4 districts are vertical. So the first thing we do is we look at the population in these districts. And we say, well, how far do they deviate from the ideal population? The next slide is fine. It's just a close-up of inside the city. And so one thing to remember, when we look at the populations, we want them to be within plus or minus 5%. And I'll just name the deviations just so you get an idea of where you stand. So District 1 is at 1.5% above the ideal, so it's within plus or minus 5. District 2 is at negative 1.3. District 4 is at negative 4.2. So those 3 are within plus or minus 5, and theoretically, they could remain unchanged. But then you have to look at districts 2 and 5. District 2 is too small in population. District 5 is too big in population, and they both need to change. In a perfect world, they would be next to each other. And then it would be hopefully a simple process of taking District 2 and moving it south into District 5, and then you'd be done. But when we look at the map, you can see that District 5 is south of District 2, but District 1 is between them. So if we can take a quick look at the current districts again, you'll see the District 1 in blue, that it's kind of blocking the path of District 2 to get into District 5. So it's, when I saw this, I thought, well, it's going to take a little bit more fancy footwork to try to balance out these districts. And so what we'll need to do is somehow remove population from 5, and then that affects the other districts. So then we saw the table already, and then after the table is a map of, on the table, I just wanted to point out real quick, I'm sorry, that when you look at the populations, that basically every single district within Lovington is majority adult Hispanic, and it's all above 60%, and the city itself is 73% Hispanic and almost 70% adult Hispanic. So you don't have to worry about any sort of minority rights voting issues with respect to creating districts that are majority Hispanic. I wanted to mention that real quick. Thank you. So with Plan A, oops, that looks, that doesn't quite look right. I wonder if I put the wrong one in there for you. I am sorry. Let me see something. Oh, okay. Let me see here. Is it possible for me to share my screen and I can share you a map or share a map?
You want to put your own screen up there?
Yes, please. Because then I'll be able to show the map. I'm not sure what happened with this one.
Yeah, give us a second. We're working on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If people understand. Yeah.
We see the same thing.
Great. Let's see here. I apologize for this. Not sure what happened.
What color name are you?
Oh, wait, you know
What
what?
color name
I was confusing myself. I really am going to apologize. I was looking at, if you bring the slideshow back up again.
Yeah, that plan name showed the changes on it.
Yeah, I was kind of focused on something. I was looking at the area between 1 or 2 and 5, and I don't know what I was thinking. So all right, so back to Plan A, back on track. Sorry, apologize for the delay. So the change between the two is what happens is districts 3 and 4, because 2 doesn't border 5 and 2 is low, we're going to start with District 5 and take care of 5 and lower its population because it was at plus almost 16. So what we did was we took districts 3 and 4 and just kind of kept their current orientation. And the little red stars on the map indicate the current commissioner locations. And so we took District 3 and moved it south, both 3 and 4, moved south to the alley that's south of Clayton Avenue and north of Avenue M. So everybody on the south side of Clayton and on the east side of 13th is in 4, and on the south side of Clayton and west side is in 4 of 13th. On the east side of 13th is in 3, both north, on the south side of Clayton, the folks who live on the south side of Clayton. So that's basically the change for District 5. The 3 and 4 take away that population north of the alley that's south of Clayton. District 2, though, is still too small. We haven't touched District 2. You'll notice that District 2, north of Polk, its boundary today is Polk Avenue. And what it does on this plan is takes the population that's north of Polk that was in 3, and now we put that population into 2. Then you have a few other changes, and between districts 3 and 4 on the north side of Avenue I, between 13th and 11th, those people do move from 4 to 3 to help balance out the population a little bit. And then District 2 adds a few people north of Van Buren between 6th and 8th Street, again, just to try to help balance out the population. So those are the changes. One objective was, well, if we have to change some districts, we'll take a shot at leaving District 1 alone and leaving it unchanged, because if 2 had gone into 1, then 1 would have had to maybe wrap around the north part of 2 and go into 3 and 4. So I felt that this was a relatively clean way of adjusting the boundaries. And then the table on the next page will show you what the populations look like after the adjustment. And so now when we see the deviations in that third and fourth columns, now all the deviations are within that plus or minus 116 people or so, and they're all within the plus or minus 4%. And you still have 6 strong majority Hispanic, or 5 strong Hispanic majority districts. And so based on those criteria, I think that the plan kind of meets all those criteria. And so there were, like I said, there were no changes to District 1. So I believe that is Plan A. That's the only plan that we were asked to create, or we just asked to create one plan. And I'm open to any questions or comments that the commission may have. Thank you.
Is there any discussion by the board? There's no discussion by the board. We'll place it on an action item on our next board meeting, get final approval. We appreciate your presentation.
Oh, thank you very much. I apologize for the delay and confusing myself. So appreciate your patience. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, the next non-action item for discussion is MARA with Wilmington Main Street. We'll be presenting a grant opportunity with the EDA for the Investing in America's Communities grant.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I was actually approached by Mayor Trujillo to look into what is the EDA, Building Back Better Communities. And this is grant funding that the federal government has set out, and these are really for construction or non-construction projects. There's a lot of things, sorry. And so the non-construction projects are actually more for like planning and creating plans to be better prepared to withstand pandemics or any other crazy new thing that may come at us, right? And so I did get a chance to actually email it out to you guys, and so that's an overall report of what the grant is and how it would work. One of the biggest things that I was waiting on was to hear back from Pettigrew and Associates, because a big deal or a big part of this grant is going to be a preliminary engineering report. And I did finally hear back from them today. It is of great concern in terms of time. It would take them a minimum of 4 months to 6 months to complete that report. This report does have to be included in the grant application. It could vary anywhere from $50,000 to $60,000. The concern is this grant opened October 1st, right? And so it's open on a rolling basis. So every month people can keep submitting applications. That means that the pocket of money is going to keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller. The deadline is going to be March. So if this was something that the city would pursue, they would have to get working like yesterday with Pettigrew and Associates on that preliminary engineering report. The biggest thing that this grant funding is it's really for construction ready projects, right? It's for projects that have already been assessed, looked over, and already have all the construction design and engineering documents, as well as the budget analysis of what the project would cost as well. I did include, when I spoke with Pettigrew and Associates, the current assessment that was provided by the state on the wastewater facility, and that is not going to be enough, of course. So their report is going to be a lot more extensive and way more detailed in information. Really, it's up to the commission on whether you would like to pursue this. I am worried about the 4-month turnaround time on the preliminary engineering report. That would mean that you would not get that report till probably February, and the grant would be due in March. So, do you guys have questions? Did everyone have a chance to look over the report?
When did this open?
October 1st. And so every month, they are allowing for people to continue submitting grant funding. The grant awards are $100,000 to $2 million. And it could be used for any type of, again, construction or projects that are going to build the community back better.
So it's kind of like a first come, first served basis. The longer we wait.
Yeah,
the less money there is. I did also include in that email was the application itself. It's basically the exact or very similar process to what we currently do with our USDA grants. I'm not gonna lie though, it's like 3 times the size of what we currently do with our USDA grant. The reporting on something like that is huge. I have a stack this big for our $50,000 award that we got last year. So when we're talking about something in the range of $500,000 to $2 million, that's only going to be bigger in terms of reporting. So that would be something that you guys would also have to consider. I did also speak with Hubert over at the Council of Government. One of the services that they provide to you guys as being a member is actually they will write and oversee your USDA grants, right? Somebody would still need to be able to provide them the information, oversee the reporting, make sure that the project is going along and following the scope of work for the grant itself. And so they would be able to do that. That is something that you guys can do. One of their concerns was the same thing though. We need that preliminary engineering report in order to apply for grant.
That's about $50,000 investment. Measures investment.
It's because of the time frame. That's really what's scary. When I first spoke with Randy, he had said, I mean, it can vary, right? Some reports just take 2 weeks. And then I got the entire list of requirements that needed to be included in the preliminary engineering report, and I sent that to them. And literally like 30 minutes before the meeting, David called me, David Boyball with Pettigrew and Associates is the one that called me. He's like, hey, it's gonna take us at least 4 months, at least. And it could also take up to 6 months, right? I did have an opportunity to speak with Wyatt before he stepped out. And one of the things that he gave me was his list of what he would like to see in the waste management facility. And it would put us at about $800,000 worth of investment in terms of what he would like to see. I know that there's somebody new overseeing that department now, and if his list would vary or have additional things, then that would be a bigger amount. There is also a 20% match that has to be done. If you noticed in your reports, it can be an in-kind donation, right? It can be staffing time. That's a great in-kind donation. However, it will be rated less than if there's actual money match to it.
It sounds like a great plan in a different financial situation.
Yeah.
But,
well, my opinion is their current status.
Sorry that you wasted all your time.
No, it's okay. Honestly, I really wanted to take that moment to look into it because it would have been a great opportunity for our community, right? $800,000 of free money, right? Quotation marks. Would definitely assist the community, but it's really geared towards shovel-ready projects. This funding is for somebody who's already.
Are you referring to the entire grant, out of all 3 categories?
So so you are bringing up a good different point, and there's actually 5 different sections of the EDA grant, right? However, you guys only qualify for that one. The other one is for counties. So like if Lee County wanted to apply for the entire county and then distribute out the funds, they could do it. One of them is geared towards creating training and development programs. So it would be more for trying to build jobs, right? For example, the Council of Government is currently working on that one. And what they're trying to do is actually implement safety planning. That one does have to be seen through like multiple cities. So it can't just, again, be one community applying for those funds. So each one of those has their own stipulations, and the only one that you guys would actually qualify is the one building back better communities. And again, that one is only for construction and non-construction projects.
So let's just say you got the $2 million map, $2 million. You're looking at $400,000 a couple, which is roughly about what our gross receipts have been running. So we can just shorten the fire department, police department, skip out a month of paying everybody. I think we can make that work.
And then the other thing about this is it's all geared towards jobs, right? So that's really what they're rating the application on. One of the good things about it is that it's a 3, 6, and 9-year deadline. So you would be able to spend all of your money upfront, and then you have 3 different timeframes to be able to show that you have created jobs and retained jobs as well. So that is what this funding is really for.
Stepping up with the risk.
Yeah, and the key to this was getting the 800,000 needed for the water plant to do the audit assessment that was done. It required about $800,000 totally. And that was the objective. That's why I focused you to see, hey, can we qualify, which we do qualify, but we just don't have the documentation and the time frame to meet that deadline.
I would really recommend maybe, I know the ICIP list for this upcoming year has already been voted on and decided, but I think that's something that in the future you guys should really consider is doing an assessment or a preliminary engineering report of some of those major departments, because then that would allow you to have the fund, like the report ready, and B, capital outlay is a perfect match. Then it wouldn't have to come from you guys.
It sounds like a plan. And that's well noted. Now we can. But we really appreciate it and really appreciate it. Yeah, and I think that most likely,
Yes.
the time is just it's too risky.
I completely understand, and honestly, I would not feel comfortable with that as well, just because 4 months, it'll be gone, you know? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item, agenda. Dave?
Mr. Mayor, the last non-action item is submitted by Commissioner Bolt, and that is a discussion of the Commissioner City Insurance.
Yes, it's come to my attention that we need to have some clarification on the City of Lovington Commissioner's Health Plan. I'd like to ask the city staff to look into it and come back with a report at next meeting. And I would ask Patrick Cameron, would it be possible?
Certainly.
We did gather all the information we needed tonight, but they could put a full report out for you on our next. Thank you, Commissioner. Moving on to action item. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to consider resolution 2021-82, approval of contract with SNMEDD COG for fiscal agent services.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Compost, second by Commissioner Bernard. Mr. Dobbs.
Due to some of our audit findings last year, the state has reached out to the Southeastern New Mexico Council of Governments and the Council of Governments to become our fiscal agent for our 3 legislative grants. Their board has voted to provide their services to the city of Lovington for those grants. Those grants include the $65,000 for the police department upgrades, the $200,000 for the city alarm system and security improvements, and the $150,000 that was talked about for the new animal shelter. These charges that they will provide will cost around $8,300 for the entire year, but they're gonna do quarterly installment, which is around $2,075. They got this amount from the 2% of the total amounts of these grants that we were awarded. These amounts will be taken out of the general fund, of course. As you can see on page 4, Exhibit A, you'll see the scope of the services they will provide, which is actually really great and will help out the city a lot because we don't want to miss anything being sent to the state as well. The city of Lovington did this in 2016 for their water well and water systems improvement grants. So I did this in 2016 as well. Lastly is, as you know, grants, the stipulations is we have to spend the money to receive the money back to be reimbursed. So it all depends on how much we have in our funds to spend that grant. But I motion to approve this resolution, please.
You make that recommendation.
Yes.
And And we, Mr. Dobbs will be meeting with Dora on Wednesday morning,
Yes, yeah.
and she'll go over this as well. During the discussion by the board. There's no discussion. Roll call vote, Shannon.
Commissioner Busher,
Yes.
Commissioner Compost,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo.
Yes. Resolution passes. Do I have a motion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for resolutions 2021-083, approval of Dawson Geographical Company permits to conduct geographical operations.
Motion was made by Commissioner Bernard, second by Commissioner Compost. Crystal?
Mayor and Commissioners, I recommend that we table this resolution. We've still got some items to work out with the Dawson Company on the exact roadways that they will be using. We still haven't got all that narrowed down quite a way. What the issue is some of our roadways are not actually dedicated to the city. Some of the roadways are just easements that the actual adjacent property owners, they still own that property. It's a right of way, but we can't grant that easement if we don't actually own that easement. So we're having to kind of work with them a lot to get where these areas are, and if they got to get a hold of a property owner or us in that certain area where they want to drive.
You're recommending a
Table
table
this?
the whole, okay, because there was, my understanding there was 3 different areas or 3 different projects. Dawson,
The road permit, permit 4.1. The other two were just the standard permits.
Yeah, the other standard permits we haven't got to.
okay,
Well, I went over them and the properties were owned by us, but I thought those went through. No? Okay.
They're for approval tonight.
Okay, well, I know the one with the roadways we can't. So that's why I was saying table this, so we have more time to fix it, and that way we need to do all the contracts at once. Because there is 3 different contracts.
okay, so the 3 contracts are under this resolution is what you're saying.
Yes.
So we'd have to table everything because everything is under, even though 2 may be okay, one is still in question. So that is why we're tabling it for our next meeting, our next city commission.
Yes. Patrick, did you have anything to add on?
No, not unless council has a question on what Crystal was talking about. And maybe you don't have a question, but the easiest way to explain it is some of the roads that we have in town were granted to the city by dedication. And we oftentimes see that in a subdivision. Some of the road just turned out to be easements that streets people started to use and the city took over. And so there aren't dedicated or dedications that we would have. So in that instance, the city would have the right and the public would have a right to drive across it. But we don't have the ability to expand that easement to include other things like granting a permit. So where there are easements only, not dedications, what we're gonna have to do is work out with those property owners and Dawson permits through the property owner in Dawson. Where there was actual dedications to the city, like in a subdivision like we have now, then the city is that owner and we can go ahead and grant those. So it's a process of identifying which streets Dawson would like to take a look at and whether those streets are have been dedicated to the city or whether they are just easements. It could be prescriptive easements, even not an easement in writing. So it takes a little bit to sort that out. Does that sort of answer the question between maybe those 2 types of situations that we're seeing?
I guess what the modified motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to rescind that motion and table this to further notice of until next board meeting.
So you're making a motion to table?
Yes.
Okay, modifying the motion to table, I'll second that.
Motion was made by Commissioner Bernard, second by Commissioner Campos. Is there any other discussion? No other discussion, roll call, Shannon.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Compost,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo.
Yes. Resolution was tabled to our next board meeting. Do I have a motion?
I can make a motion, resolution 2021-084, approval to advertise for chief of police.
Second that.
Motion was made by Commissioner Bolt, second by Commissioner Bernard. Is there any discussion? If no discussion, roll call, Shannon.
Commissioner Compost,
Yes.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo.
Yes. Resolution passes. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to consider resolution 2021-085, retirement of police canines.
Second that.
Motion was made by Commissioner Compost, second by Commissioner Bernard. Chief Davis.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'm recommending as interim chief of police the retiring and the transfer of ownership of Lovington Police Department canines Nero, Vax, and Legend. For Nero and Vax, due to recent changes in marijuana laws in the state of New Mexico, their abilities to do their job are now rendered obsolete. Canine Nero has had some medical issues which have been verified by a veterinarian. This resolution comes with the understanding that all three of their canine officers would receive permanent care and ownership of the dogs. They've all signed affidavits, which you saw at the last meeting, where they assume all responsibility for care, specialized diet, medicine, and it would also relieve the Lovington Police Department of any further future stipends towards the officers, in payment for the care of those animals. So I'm recommending that we pass this resolution.
Third discussion. Jillian, can you let us know when is the retirement plan?
October 20th at 2 p.m. at Troy Dinner.
Third discussion. No discussion, roll call, vote, Shannon.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Commissioner Compost,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo.
Yes. Resolution passed. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for resolution 2021. Road closure to Hart. Road closure for Heart of Lee County.
Motion was made by Commissioner Campos. Monica?
Okay, I'm valid. I should just give me a little chair right here. I'm just kidding. So if you guys have not heard, we have teamed up with White Hobbs and Lovington Chamber to host Heart of Lee County. White Hobbs actually approached us in the chamber to host an event in downtown Lovington. They were very impressed with our past events. They felt that we would be the perfect organizations to work with to be able to do this. If you don't know what White Hobbs does, is they provide backpacks for children. They're finger food style so that the kids can eat them on their own without the need of an adult to open or like cook them and make those meals for them. The really cool part about this is that all the funds raised are actually going to be separated throughout the communities. Some of the funds will go to the Lovington Food Coalition. Some of them will go to Isaiah's Soup Kitchen, as well as Sissy's Kitchen. And then, of course, White Hobbs will also get some of the funds. Lovington Chamber and Lovington Main Street will not be raising or making any money off of this event. We are strictly working it as staff to help them, just because we've been very successful, like I said, in our events in the past. So as you can see, it's a big setup. We will be having a car show, chili cook-off, costume contest, and Aaron Watson will be performing free in downtown. What I am asking for is two things, kind of weird. Thing one is I need this intersection right here, this piece, I need that approved for more days. I will need that portion of the street closed at 3 PM on Friday, and it will not reopen until Sunday at 3 PM. I will be submitting that permit to the state. It does also have to be approved by you before I can submit to the state. The remainder of the area, which would be Washington, Love, and Central, would only need to be closed on Saturday for the duration of the event. I know we are having some issues in terms of staffing, and just like I mentioned with Lizzie over the weekend, we would be more than willing to maybe work something out so that we can close the street on Saturday, and you don't have to get some additional staff to come out there on Saturday. I do understand that they are not, they would still get a little bit of overtime hours on Friday because they're technically off that day. But we would like to work with you guys as much as we possibly could to minimize the cost for the additional work staff that you'll need.
So can I ask a question on why Main Street and why are you putting the stage there?
The stage is the 40 by 40 stage, and it does not fit anywhere else in order to be able to fit our community, like attendees and everything.
Is this a different stage than we used before?
Yes, this one's bigger.
Okay, all right, just asking questions.
Yes.
'Cause
No, you're
I
fine.
can see difficulties with the dance area is an absolutely horrendous mess. And then, so, because you had the last one on Central and, you know, there was tripping hazards and twisted ankles and a couple of other things that I encountered.
Central's honestly one of the better streets.
No, I understand, but for whatever reason, right there was some difficulties and there was several people.
Yes,
I danced with, they complained to me about dancing with them, so.
One of the big things with that was definitely the chords and the way that the sound stage has to be set up, right? So the DJ booth, or not the DJ booth, but the sound technician has to be in a direction that they can actually see them. For this, it will allow us to put it off to the side. So it shouldn't interfere as much as it normally did for this last time. But the stage is a lot bigger. Aaron Watson is honestly a way bigger act than anything we've brought before. So his requirements are a lot bigger. And because it's a 40 by 40, there's not a lot of space for me to put it in.
No, I'm just asking questions, I don't understand why.
So, yeah.
Why it was put there.
Maybe it was your dancing.
I didn't say my dancing was good, I'm just saying, it looked like I had been in the beer garden for a while.
That's why I was here.
But yeah.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Alcino, your permit request through the New Mexico Department of Transportation says that the duration is from 10/23 of 21, which is that Saturday, but you're requesting that the road closed on the 22nd.
Yes, I do apologize. I have the wrong dates on there. I have an updated copy that I can provide to you guys. Originally, we were looking at it to be less. The stage is really big. They're not going to have enough time to set up and be prepared by the time sound check comes on Saturday.
Did I see that, please?
Yes.
So we have a copy of that.
Can you just go to your check?
So another question while we're talking about it, because we don't meet again until October 25th.
Yeah.
So we'd have to call a special meeting to approve this?
No, if you approve it tonight, it is as an action item. It will go to the State Department tomorrow.
Okay. And then we just approve it after they approve it.
No, so you have to approve it for them to approve it. Yes. And I do have, Pettigrew and Associates has offered or has given us a donation where they are going to be doing our constructor detour plan that is required by the state so that it can be updated and ready to go according to their needs.
Okay, Mayor, I'd like to revise this motion so that we have that road closure for the 22nd of October through the 24th. That's all for me.
Second.
Motion amended to support the dates by Commissioner Bernard, second by Compost.
Additional question. Also, the indemnification and hold farmers agreement needs to be changed. Because it says October 23rd on it. Where's that? Is this shows up US Highway 82 as well.
So on that one, that's just asking for the actual date of the event. And so the actual date is the 23rd.
Okay. And this is how it's gonna be submitted? The permit? The
Yes,
permit, is
yes.
it white out?
yes. There,
Can we make it look a little more?
yes, I can.
Thank
It'll get scanned and sent through the digital.
There any more questions about it?
Yeah.
There's no further, so go ahead, go ahead.
So the question the other concern I have is you have Main Street blocked off, but you don't have it blocked off like the cornerstone and all that stuff like that. There's nothing open down there. Why would you leave that portion of Main Street open?
Because I have to have the petition signatures from those property owners, and I do not have a majority of them. When I spoke with the engineering from NMDOT, he said that the detour would have to remain the same. So the detours will still be the same. However, parking will be allowed in that area.
Fair enough.
Any other discussion? There's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Commissioner Compost,
Yes.
Commissioner Butcher,
Yes.
Commissioner Bolt,
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy,
Yes.
Mayor Trujillo.
Yes. Resolution passes. Still have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we consider accounts payable.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Trumbull, second by Commissioner Gandy. Mr. Dawes?
I have no surprises. They're all just basic payments. There's no big payments that we have on there, just like I said, the basic ones. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Mr. Dawes,
Yes,
I work, Q Systems,
that is for the,
$6,300.
that's an annual payment for Animal Control for their software. That's, it's just annual payment for Animal Control. I think it keeps up with, shots or,
Their reports,
Yes.
they do, put in, warnings and issue tickets.
Thank you. Mr. Dawes.
Yes.
You mentioned Gene Brothers, $1,900. What is that for?
I think that is. It was, it looks like it's for training for police officers. Do you know? It was for Hayden and someone else. I can't read that last name.
That's probably gonna be canine related.
Yes, okay. It was, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Combs?
Just a quick question, go back to Chief. If we were gonna use those dogs anymore, what was that training for? Any idea?
I don't know if it was part of an annual certification process. I'm not sure how far back. Do you know the date?
I do not know the date of that, but I can look.
Would you mind just getting that back to me?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
Maybe the next meeting.
Why it was needed so close to the vote?
Pardon?
Why it was needed so close to the vote? Like we were gonna retire them anyway?
Right.
Yeah. I'll look it up.
That's it. Thank you.
There's no further discussion. Roll call vote, Shannon.
Commissioner Butcher?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Tomco?
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy?
Yes. Resolution, accounts payable card payment. I do have final motion.
Regular motion for adjournment. Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Gandy, second by Commissioner Coppell. Is there any further discussion before closing? If no further discussion, roll call vote, Shannon.
Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Tomco?
Yes.
Commissioner Gandy?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Seaver?
Yes. Meeting adjourned.
Stop.